Hi, everyone. Welcome to this episode of Disruptive CEO Nation. Hey, companies need people to unlock their genius. And we have a guest with us today who is all about helping business leaders know how to lead so that I think everybody on the team is in the business of innovating and problem solving and road mapping the company to the future. So we're heading over to Washington, D.C. to speak to Alan Gregerman. Um, I could say so much about this gentleman, but he's got great things to share. So I just want to toss it over to you, Alan, to tell everybody what beautiful, wonderful things your business delivers to the world today.
Oh, no. Well, thank you. And first, pleasure to be on the show. Yes. I'm actually an innovation consultant, and I started being an innovation consultant long before innovation was trendy. And now it seems everybody's gotten the religion about innovation. But more importantly, I think in a world changing fast, everybody needs to be more innovative, and every leader needs to unlock the genius in not only their people, but their organization. So I spend a lot of time doing that. I work with companies of all sizes across lots of different industries, basically how to show them how to remain relevant in a world that's uncertain at best.
Well, and I think we want to share for our audience just so they know. So you're the president and chief innovation officer of VentureWorks. You've been featured in over 250 leading publications, including Wall Street Journal, NPR, CNN. We could just, keep the list going. You're also the author of multiple books, and we are here to talk about your new book that's launching this October. But before we talk about the new book, just for groundwork, tell our listeners the titles that you have already published and that are already available.
Oh, okay. No, that's fine. So I think the common thread in all of my books is I'm kind of keenly focused on companies unlocking their genius. And so I'm always looking for ways to do it. So my first book was called Lessons from the Sandbox. It's a book about what companies can learn from small children about how to be innovative. Everyone listening here was once a small child. And my guess is when they were a small child, they were super innovative. They were constantly asking questions, looking for new ideas, putting things together. My second book was called Surrounded by Geniuses. And it was a book about how you can find ideas outside of where you normally look for ideas. Think about this. Most companies and organizations cast a very narrow net when they're trying to be innovative. And I get called in all the time, and companies say, well, we're trying to benchmark the best practices in our industry. And I suggest to them, well, if your industry's not awesome at what you're trying to do, why would you do that? And so that book is about how you find ideas and inspiration in other industries, in history, other cultures, popular culture, science fiction. My third book was called The Necessity of Strangers. And it's about how connecting with new people, especially people who are different than us, can really lead us to stretching our thinking and coming up with breakthroughs. And then my new book, which comes out in October, is called The Wisdom of Ignorance. And it's based on the fundamental idea, and I love this idea, of course, that if I know a lot about something as an individual expert or as a company or organization, I can make it incrementally better. I can figure out the details of what we do and figure out how to make those more seamless and easier for customers to use. But if I want to come up with a truly breakthrough idea, I'm way better off not knowing a lot about what I'm trying to solve for because I don't start with any preconceived notions. So this book is really like a blueprint for how leaders and organizations can be awesome by not knowing a lot.
So I want to come back to that, but I want to jump back to what you just said and highlight the point of the necessity of strangers. I tell people all the time, one of the topics that I speak on is networking and helping people expand their networks. And what I tell people is when you walk into a room and you have the choice or the moment of who you're going to walk up and stand with or which table you're going to choose to sit at. I always tell people to choose the group or choose the people that look the least like you. And because of that philosophy of our lives and our mindsets are richer when we surround ourselves with diversity and diversity of thought. And I couldn't agree with you more, benchmarking with industries outside of our own. I want to ask you, Alan, before we pressed record, we talked about the difference between consultants that talk about innovation but are really process improvement versus those who are really here to help companies innovate and unlock this genius. So, can you just give us a little bit, now that we got the record button going,
Yeah, no, that's
on
fine.
what the difference is?
Yeah, so think about this. The world is changing super fast. So I think anyone who's listening has to honestly realize that their business or organization is going to be different 5 years from now. It's going to be different in significant ways. There are an awful lot of consultants out there who say, I can help you to fix this product or this service or this solution or this process, or we can tweak your business model just enough to remain relevant today. That's not
Mhm.
going to cut it. So what I think companies and organizations need to do is to really stretch the thinking of their folks and to really imagine that 5 years from now, they're going to be significantly different and then figure out a path to get there. And so that's when I think about innovation. That's what our business is all about, helping our customers to remain relevant and do remarkable things that are way more valuable for their customers.
I love that. I couldn't agree with you more. And it is really hard, right? To say in 5 years where are we going to be? I always talk about business and those of us that are in charge of managing resources, right? As the pie, right? And the pie can be sliced in so many different ways, but how do we make in a circle space for a new slice? And I
Right.
think that's the challenge that we have. Okay, so wisdom of ignorance. Um, 6 keys to remaining relevant. I'm gonna pick up the book, Alan. What is something that I'm gonna encounter and garner when I read this book?
Okay. Well, I hope that folks understand two things. The first is that innovation happens way differently than most companies or organizations realize. And I'll simply mention it in this way. I've been speaking about and thinking about with all of our customers for more years than I care to remember, what I call the 99% rule. And so think about this. Throughout the course of human history, 99% of all new ideas are based on something that already exists. Either someone else's thinking, another company or organization's thinking, or something someone has found in nature. If that's the case, why would I show up with smart people in a conference room and say, okay, our backs are to the wall. Does anybody have an out of the box idea? And then I give them all a blank sheet of paper, or we have a nice whiteboard and I say, okay, I'm waiting. The reality is, I can jumpstart their thinking by actually having them engage the world around them. That's where ideas are happening. I actually take teams of people outside of their businesses, outside of their offices, to explore the world looking for brilliant ideas that could be the start of their next innovation. And so that's what I want people to think about. And the book really is all about how you do that. Then the book, as you said, suggests 6 keys, skills we all need to develop to be remarkable in a world changing fast. We have to be purposeful. What's frustrating to me is I go into a lot of organizations and they ask people to be innovative, but they don't focus their energy on the problems they need to solve or the opportunities they need to create. So we need to be purposeful as the starting point. We need to make clear to everyone in our organization what we're trying to accomplish and where we're trying to get to. We may not know exactly what 5 years from now looks like, but we need to have a direction so people can give us their ideas for how to get there. The second is we need to be curious. That's why I take people out of their offices is curiosity is vital. We need to pay attention. Think about this simple example. Um, all of the people listening can probably look around their homes or offices and see ways that they've used something called Velcro. Velcro wasn't invented by a scientist in a lab. Velcro was invented by a guy walking his dog through the Alps. As he was walking his dog through the Alps, he saw his dog was covered with burrs, something that's happened to all of us. And instead of saying this is a nuisance, he pulled a burr off of his dog, looked at it under a microscope, and imagined that the hooks that were on burrs could be applied to lots of problems that humans face. 100,000 different applications. So the reality is the people who are curious win. But if we don't get out of our office, we're not going to be particularly curious. So the book really talks with people about how we actually do that. The third thing, which is really important, is leaders and organizations need to be humble. The truth is, we don't know nearly as much as we think, but being humble and admitting we don't know stuff is really a bad look for most organizations. And yet, the reality is, if we can say we don't know the best way to do something and then commit together to figuring it all out, then we can be awesome. I also want people to be respectful. You gave a great example when you talked about you've got to connect with people who are new and different than you. Yes,
Hmm.
I believe I can learn something from everyone else on the planet, but I have to be open to it. Okay. And so the idea of respecting everyone, even if they're different than me, even if they've never been in my industry. We also need to be, and we're talking about the idea of being future focused. And then I think every single company and every leader listening has to be a bit paranoid. And paranoid to me is, you know, while you're running your business and making sales and doing a great job, somebody's figuring out a way to eat your lunch. And so you have to always be looking around and saying, who's out there who could do something different that my customers will think is more valuable? And so I try to future proof in a way our customers by challenging them to imagine all the folks who could compete with them and how they defend themselves and create greater value for their customers.
I really think so. A lot of the people that we talk to when we speak to company founders who are still at some stage of growth and scaling up their businesses, I think this is a real critical piece for them because they're still accelerating speed to market and trying to gain market share. Um, but it's equally as important to those existing businesses that want to stay on top because so many people come along. I really appreciate you saying, someone's out there figuring out a way to eat your lunch, because there are companies that will watch you. I mean, it used to be if you were first to market, you won. In some ways now, if you're first to market with a new product, a new service or whatever, and people are like, "Oh, hey, that's working. Let's replicate it. Let's take it and do what they're doing and do it better." So, this kind of vigilance, it's exhausting. And you talk to a lot of CEOs and business leaders. So out of these kind of keys that you're talking about, where do you see a lot of the CEOs that you interact with kind of shake their heads and feel that they might be falling short or that they need to
Yeah.
put more focus?
So that's a fair question. Well, let's go to the two categories of organizations you mentioned. Let's think about established companies. And so they show up every day, they sell their stuff, they go, customers still want it. We're good. Um, but they don't realize that customers actually want more than what they offer. They just
Mhm.
haven't found it yet. And so for those folks, they need to constantly be paying attention. They need to be vigilant, do a great job at what they do, make it better, but be experimenting with what the future should look like. Then we have folks who are entrepreneurial, and I applaud all of them. They've come to market with something new and better, but they can't just believe that what they've come to market with is the be all and end all. They have to morph, and they have to morph faster than ever before. So I think they have to start with something, build customer relationships, and then also keep pushing those relationships to be clearer and clearer about what matters to customers and delivering value. When I see CEOs get stuck, it's because they get in a rut of believing they're doing well. They're delivering value to their shareholders. The customers seem to be happy with them. So that's a place where they get stuck. And I think they don't realize that they have to take a certain amount of time to think about the future and that they'll never exactly know what the future's like, but they can keep hedging their way closer to creating the future. I like to often say, folks go to work, they sit in offices, and the future walks by them every single day, and they don't lift up their head because they have so much stuff in their inbox.
Yeah. I love how you say future focus. I talk a lot about destination thinking and I talk a lot about, what's that flag on the mountain and how are we all getting there even if you don't know exactly what is on the flag, but you need to get up that mountain. Um and most This is why I think some of the founders I've talked to have the theory that they're like, I'm the founder, but I should never be the CEO. Because for them, the CEO is running the operations, is the day to day, and you can't be, for a lot of them, they found too big of a struggle to be the visionary and the destination uh, forward focused person and the person in the minutia in the weeds. Do you see that kind of conflict in leaders that you work with?
Well, I see that, but I think with a lot of the companies or most of the companies we work with, there's a COO, someone
Hmm.
responsible for the day to day. There's a CEO who often is ill equipped after they came up with a brilliant idea to continue what's, my encore. But they don't have to do it alone, So I'd argue that the best CEOs are the ones that excite their entire organization about figuring out where they need to be going. And they not only excite their entire organization, but they involve customers in thinking differently. They involve the newest employees. Think about this. If I'm in an organization and I'd like to be brilliant, most organizations say, well, who are the most tenured and smartest people in our organization? Let's get them together. That's all well and good, but those are the folks who are most tied to what we do. The likelihood they'll come up with an original idea is really pretty remote. Um, I would include in the group that thinks about our future people who haven't been in our organization a while.
Hmm.
People who've actually been somewhere else, who see the world moving around, who see different business models and different ideas. I'd tap some of their energy and their freshness because we haven't sucked the brain out of them yet. We've
I'm I'm laughing. And I think this is exactly why you're talking about the wisdom of ignorance, right? Is you start to have biases that you can't shake free. And I really do appreciate you saying, you know, I feel like the like we've all killed the company and corporate retreats. Like somewhere along the line they got a bad rep. But I always say you can't get smarter in the four walls of your office. It's really hard to grow when you're surrounded by familiar. Um, and so I love this. Capture the energy of the people that aren't already completely immersed. What other tips do you have for like stirring up this
oh,
genius
good.
in our
Yeah.
employees?
Well, so let's go to something you just mentioned. I wouldn't kill the company retreat. I wouldn't call it a retreat because a retreat seems like I'm going
Oh,
backwards. Um,
no, I think they're not using it enough anymore. And also, like you said, it got a bad rap in a bad way
right.
for lots of reasons.
But I do it totally differently. So for me, a retreat or an advance is we actually take a group of our folks out to get excited about ideas. I take them to other leading companies in different industries. I take them to museums to think about both the past and the present. I take them to science museums a lot to think about technology. I take them to hip, trendy restaurants to think about kind of how is popular culture playing out. I take them to neighborhoods filled with life. I take them to performances. I take people out of their offices to stir the pot, to give them lots of ideas about what could be possible for their organization. And so for me, that's kind of the starting point is let's expose ourselves to a world of ideas and possibilities before we narrow ourselves into thinking about what we should do next.
I love that. And this is where I have to say for our listening audience, when you can work with consultants and strategic advisors that show up in their all black or in their business suits or their ties, I got to tell you, Alan is sitting here with his floral shirt on and his multicolored glasses. Which shout out, Alan, because I love somebody that has really funky glasses. So everything about your DNA screams we are here to think in an innovative, in a unique way. And I really value that about you.
Oh, no, no, no. Well, I appreciate that. No, I mean, the world is filled with color and possibilities. And if we just stay in our offices, we only see the colors on our logo and the way we do things. And, this is kind of me, but I hope I can energize all of our customers to be willing to stretch their thinking because they're going to have to. You know, they can't stand still while the world is moving fast. And so I want them to engage the world and get excited about what's possible.
So I want to give something that's a practical tip to a business leader that might be listening. And I know we kind of talked about it's difficult to march everybody into a meeting room and put up a whiteboard, or in today's modern times, get everybody on a Zoom call and put up a digital post-it board, whiteboard. But do you have an exercise or something simple that we can tell our listeners, like, hey, next time you gather your team, maybe try something like this?
Oh, well, so I have a bunch. We don't have so much time. I have a bunch, but here's what I'd start to do. And remember, every company's culture is different, so I don't know how they engage and communicate. Uh, but if I were a leader, I'd start off in whatever way I get everyone or most people together, I'd get them together and I would be honest with them about the fact that even if we're doing well, the world is changing and we need to keep up with it, and that we don't know all the answers. And then I would be clear about this is what we're trying to accomplish. This is why we started our business. These are the customers we serve. And we want everybody to start thinking about how we can raise the bar in the way we serve them. So that's one of the things I do. The second thing is I would change the way we do orientation in our company to actually unlock the genius in new hires, as opposed to trying to get new hires to quickly get up to speed like the rest of us. So when a new hire arrives, I would give them a clipboard. I don't have one. Here's one. Uh, I would give them a clipboard and I would give them blank sheets of paper and I would ask them to go and talk with everybody they can and
Hmm.
ask people questions about the organization. And then I would have them come back to the leadership team and share their observations about us. What do they think we're doing really well? What things don't they think we're doing really well? What do they think we should be thinking about differently, because the world they've come from is thinking about it differently? So I definitely would do that. I'd engage people in coming up with ideas and then quickly screen those ideas and think about which of these ideas are experiment worthy that I can test with customers to see if I can create value. And I also want people to think about so many companies, and I'm guessing a lot of the people who are listening, um, they view creating a new idea or innovating as something that they have to get perfect before they ever launch it out into the marketplace.
Hmm.
We live in a world in which, what gets called minimally viable products is the way to go. We only need a half-baked idea as long as it provides value to customers. Then we ought to just get it out to customers and let them give us feedback on making it better. And so we have to create this kind of faster, more agile mentality. So that's something leaders need to do. And they can do that, I think, by just being honest with people, by just saying, these are the things we need to do. And so, in this book, The Wisdom of Ignorance, I give like these 6 keys. And I would feel like if a leader said, we're going to have to embrace these 6 ideas, these are the things that if we can do these as a team consistently, it's not all about me. I don't have all the answers. If we can do these consistently as a team, we
Hmm.
can we can create a future in which we're even more relevant than today.
How fantastic. What great wisdom. Hey, Alan, I like to ask my guests every now and then, is there a podcast you listen to, a book you're reading, somebody you're following that you would give as a tip to our listeners?
Well, so I listen to a lot of podcasts, and I will spend more time listening to yours. I really appreciate the conversation. Um, I have to be honest. I love Freakonomics Radio. And I love Freakonomics Radio because it's not unlike what we're talking about here, and that is different and surprising ways to think about the world. I, of course, want to apply that to business. What are different and surprising ways we can
Hmm.
create value for customers? So I'm always looking for kind of new ideas that I think are valuable.
Alan, what makes you say today was a great day?
Uh, Today was a great day. I think if I have a chance to serve our customers, deliver value to them, and imagine what I can be doing in the future that's different and better, that energizes me.
Hey, hey, to my listeners, I always say, we like to bring people on that we absolutely think that you should follow and get to know. So, Alan, if people want to learn more, where should they go and what should they do?
Okay, great. Well, I certainly would love people to, I guess it's pre-order because the book doesn't come out until October 14th, but The Wisdom of Ignorance, Alan Gregerman. They can find out more about me by going to www.alan, A-L-A-N, Gregerman, Gregerman.com. And they can connect with me on LinkedIn. I'm pretty easy to find. And they can reach out to me, email me. I respond to all of my legitimate emails. I think I've programmed my email to let the things that are real pop up so they can do that. I'd love to learn more about their business and hear what they're up to, and I'm glad to give them a few ideas to spark their thinking.
Yeah, and I'll just give a plug. Like if you go to Alan's website, he's got courses. It's got a list of some of his speaking and seminars and some resources for you, so you can go check it out. But I think the headline here for business leaders, and that we hope we gave you, is just a little bit to think about. Take a deep breath and think about, because we know we're in this world that where we need to solve big problems, and everybody needs to take a breath and take a moment and have partners like Alan that help you think beyond the boundaries of where you stand today. So, Alan, we really appreciate that you gave us the gift of your time and dropped by.
Oh, well, thank you very much for having me. I've loved the conversation, and no, it's fun. I believe in everyone who listens to your podcast that they could be remarkable. They just need to do the right things.
Thanks. And hey, to our listeners, if Alan said something that you think somebody else needs to hear, pass along a copy of this episode. If there's a disruptive and innovative company founder or CEO that you think we need to speak to, send me a note at connect@AllisonKSummers.com. Until we speak again, keep your eyes on the future and always be disruptive. Thanks, Alan.